Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, Code Movement Pakistan audience. Welcome to another session of Code Movement Pakistan Weekly Jam. So today we have our guest speaker Sardar Nawab Khan with us, and he'll be discussing how to do GraphQL API with Laravel and Vue.js. So welcome, Sardar Nawab
Alhamdulillah.
Khan sir. How are you?
Thank you. Alhamdulillah, right. How about yourself? Everything okay?
I'm doing good, thanks. So let's get started. आप ready हैं?
Yes, ready.
ओके सो ज़रा स्क्रीन शेयर करवा दें.
जी. Okay, let me know when you can see it.
Yes, I can. So I'll take myself off the stream now. You are up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, assalamu alaikum and welcome everyone. This is Sardar Nawab Khan here. I'm basically a Laravel and Nuxt developer, and recently I've been on my work at my workplace at Cloud Launch, and on a few of my hobby projects. I've been playing around with microservices, and predominantly I come from I consider myself as an API developer, and I've tried different technologies at different times in my career to kind of like see which one suits the best. Basically, Laravel and GraphQL are two technologies that are like Laravel is a framework which is Laravel is a PHP framework which is quite popular these days, and GraphQL is a query language, and which is gaining a lot of traction these days in terms of API development. And a lot of people a growing number of people are trying GraphQL. But the adoption in terms of the Laravel developers and Vue developers or overall is like there are a lot of factors that are stopping it. So I wanted to actually address all of that in this talk, and show you how easy it is to start with GraphQL. I have a YouTube channel at Easy Full Stack where I try to share my knowledge periodically or whatever I know, and you can follow me there. I'm also quite active at Twitter, and my handle at Twitter is smkhan300, and I also have a website smkhan.dev, which I'm trying to find more time for. Okay, so let's kickstart things. And one question that comes to everyone's mind is why GraphQL? When specifically when we have REST. So what happened is most of the developers they are working with REST API, and they're doing this for years. And whenever the question of GraphQL pops up, they say, okay, we already have a REST, and that is doing the job, and we don't really need GraphQL. Here is an example. There was a time basically when due to slow networks and due to the advent of mobile development as such, the overfetching and underfetching problem that REST inherently has, it started creating problems. So, for example, in the example that you can see on my screen, on the right, you'll see a typical REST endpoint, which is basically returning a list of flags, and this is only first of the 10 entries on the screen. So what's happening is, even if in the picture on the front end, if you see on the left, all we need is the name of the apartment, the number or the address of the apartment, the number of beds, the number of bathrooms, garages. Of course, the apartments don't have garages, so we have. So if it's a typical, like a regular property endpoint that we discuss, what happens is, and the only other thing that we need is only two other things that we need is the covered area and the total price. Now, what's happening with the REST endpoint is that it's throwing all this stuff at us just because we send a get call to this endpoint, and it's not only giving us, and this is a rigid structure. There's nothing that we can get less out of this. We cannot get anything less out of it, and we cannot get anything more out of it. So what's going to happen is it's going to give us everything. It's going to give us these 10, 12 properties, and then it's going to give us the full details of the project as well. If we want a part of this, we can't do that. If we want more of anything, we can't. I mean, if in the same call we want to get more details say, I mean, if we are getting this project ID, it's not very uncommon that we get this project ID and we send this to another, or maybe we get a lat long and then we send it to another API to get some more details of location and everything. But that's probably not very easy here. So what we're doing is, in terms of GraphQL, what we're doing is we are fetching exactly what is required. So it's a query language which is basically querying the database in a way that it's getting you exactly what you want. So in the picture above, these are the details. These are 4 or 5 details that we want, and these are exactly the details that we are getting. If you see the image below the picture, this is basically a GraphQL response. So multiple API calls need to be made to maybe get just a username and a post title. And there are quite a few other examples that you might have come across during API development. Then another inherent problem that REST has is, and I'm not demonizing REST. REST is basically it's a very good thing. It's a very good option. It's the de facto for till now. But there are too many endpoints. So for example, on the right side of my screen, if you're a Laravel developer, you'll see I have this API.php file, and this is basically an API routes file. What's happening is in this file, and this is, I would like to call this a highly optimized file. Why I'm calling it this? Because I'm referencing all the all the controllers on top, and it's and then it's just for example, for a whole resource, for codes or invoices or consumers notifications, all of these is just doing an API resource. So some of the developers, if you look to the left, some of the developers who have would maybe prefer to work with it in this way. So for example, instead of just one line in code, they would like to do get codes, and that would be their index for the index page or for the index call, getting all the list of the quotations. Then if they want to see a single code, they would like to send another show request and store, update, delete. So this can actually get quite messy, quite long. So for larger projects, and even this medium-sized project that I've shared a screenshot out of, this is only 25% of, as I said, a highly optimized file. But if you don't optimize it, or if you tend to go the way on the left, then it's going to be a fairly long file. And no wonder these days, I mean, you can see a Laravel Daily video on this as well. He did a particular video on this. Whereas where basically now multiple API route files are in practice. So for larger projects, you actually reference, in the main PHP file, you reference these other files. So you can imagine the number of endpoints that REST can result in, and as you can see, all these patch requests and these are maybe even a button on the front end that might require another endpoint to update a particular column, and that's going to go on and on and on. And whenever there's a new change on the front end, then there's going to be a call to the backend dev, and they are going to have to amend or make a new endpoint again. Now, GraphQL, in comparison, has only one endpoint. So right from the start, it has only one endpoint through which and then you query that endpoint to get the data that you want, and not vice versa, that you just send a GET request and it gives you all this stuff that you don't want. Okay, so Another issue is which I've briefly mentioned now. There's slow front end development. So basically, then you build a new page on the front end, which poses new requirements. If you pull, you come up with anything new, or maybe for example for the web and for the mobile, there are different requirements. And what happens is it's just you just have to call your backend dev and backend team, and you need to tell them, okay, please update this point, please add this. And if they are working on, in my experience, they are working on different on 4 or 5 different projects, it might as well get days, if not weeks, to kind of get that endpoint updated exactly the way that you want. And at the same time, due to this, I mean, certain REST endpoints, it varies from developer to developer, but certain developers might be returning, a first name and a second name, and first name and last name, and then even a full name, just because mobile, requires it differently. And other scenarios like this are not very uncommon. Now, there are quite a few GraphQL misconceptions when the question of adoption comes up. There are a lot of things that people would come up with. For example, say, okay, big learning curve. So they would say, okay, it's very difficult to learn. It's not that easy to get your hands on, and we are already working with REST. We have a team that is strong in REST. Then they would say there's lack of security. Then it's difficult to use with Laravel. Laravel is more like oriented towards REST. Then there's no authentication and authorization. It's an extra layer of abstraction, which it is not. Of course, there's just like REST, it's just one layer between the database and the client. Then it says there's more code to write. So there is it would. Conversely, actually, what's happening is you are actually going to write less code, which we're going to see in this session as well. That you write a lot less code in comparison to other API development. For example, if you are developing with API resources. No caching support. Now that's one thing that has probably some substance, but the community is working hard on this, and there are certain solutions that are out there now. Then there is, like they would say, okay, there's too small a community. For example, if you run into a problem, you might have an issue. Finding a solution. There's no file upload support. Then I have to leave REST API completely and then completely work with GraphQL. Well, as far as my research is concerned, most of the people who have written such stuff, they wrote it in 2017, and we don't read the date on the article, and we will say, oh, okay, GraphQL has this, GraphQL has that. Most of this has already been solved, and tech evolves. So every single tech. If you look at some of the technologies that are some of the tech that is in common practice these days. If you look at it in its primitive days, you would be surprised. You wouldn't even like to look at it now. So there has been a lot of development, and almost all of these have been very clearly answered, and that is why GraphQL adoption is on the rise. Some clear advantages are, first of all, auto documentation. So as you'll see in the API that we'll develop, that there's auto documentation. So basically, you will be the documentation will be automatic. You will not be developing. You'll not be writing any documentation at all. The documentation will be completely automatic, as you'll see in the session later on. Then there is a vibrant, ever-growing ecosystem. It's like I'll show you in the next screens as to how the ecosystem is constantly growing, and there is growing community support as well. Adoption trends are always on the rise. Between 2019 and 2020, basically it was double. The adoption numbers actually doubled. And it can very well live peacefully alongside REST. You can in the same project you can use REST and you can use GraphQL. So there's no restriction whatsoever on you using just REST or just GraphQL. You can use both together very well. In the first screen, the endpoint that I showed you, that is actually using both REST and GraphQL in the same project. Now there are libraries for every language, so no matter if you're a Go developer, JavaScript developer, or a Laravel developer, you'll see a library for that's working perfectly for GraphQL, and that has made adopting GraphQL a lot easier. There's no API versioning, so all of you are familiar with the pain that is involved in API versioning. So there's version 1, version 2, version 3. and migrating everything over is a big pain. With GraphQL, there's no versioning whatsoever, and there are ways in which they manage the change um, in different API fields. It's also great for mobile development. Just like I said, you can for very if you want very little data, and for certain markets where there's still mobile connectivity is still a challenge, it can actually be a game changer. If it matters a lot as to how much data is coming and going to an endpoint, especially for slower speeds. I mean, that can actually be that can actually be a lot of difference. And GraphQL is certainly faster than REST in most cases. The only difference is, as I said in the beginning, there's no HTTP caching. Basically, you can do caching on you have to manage caching on your own. There's no built-in or innate support for caching, but otherwise caching is possible. But since I haven't explored that in a lot of detail, that's why I'm saying in most cases, just to stay on the safe side. Then next to no calls to the backend devs. Once the schema is written, you don't really have to call them, and you don't really have to tell them, okay, update this endpoint, update that endpoint. There's only one endpoint, and it depends on how you query that endpoint that everything works. There's a strong type system, so there's very little chances of mistake when you're doing. All the fields are there. They're specifically the type system is very strong, and then once the schema is written again, it follows that type system. And with Laravel, that's even better, as you'll see. Companies adopting GraphQL. There are quite a few companies that are adopting GraphQL. For example, there's Facebook, who actually came up with GraphQL in the beginning. Then there is Airbnb. There's New York Times, Shopify, Expedia. You name it. There are a lot of companies that have adopted GraphQL, and they've adopted it very fast. If it wasn't secure, why would PayPal be using it? If it wasn't it wasn't scalable, then why would Airbnb or Expedia, for that matter, be using it? And like LinkedIn and GitHub and these all of these companies they're moving fast to GraphQL, and you must have seen it in the headlines. Airbnb moving 10x faster at scale with GraphQL and Apollo. So this is basically a lot. This is basically the new trend that everyone is really following, and there are reasons to this. So I would like to just quote Dan Browner here, who's a product manager at Expedia Group. He said much of the mobile app team's work had nothing to do with creating experiences for customers, because they were constantly figuring out which APIs to call, onboarding those APIs. So a new developer comes in, you need to onboard. Even if you onboard a new developer, then that's you have to familiarize them. They have to familiarize which API endpoint to call and stuff. No matter whichever backend tech they use, and dealing with versions and endpoint changes. All of this distraction required additional resources and slowed our feature delivery. So these are things that have made GraphQL a big player next to REST in API development now. So Rapid APIs, which is a giant in API development, the survey in 2020 found that 22.5% of API developers now use GraphQL, while 14.7% was using it in production, and adoption has increased a lot since. There are different conferences and meetups as well. For example, in 2021, there was GraphQL Conf, there was GraphQL Galaxy Summit, and there are multiple GraphQL meetups. The links for these I'll include in the in the comment section, so that you can have a look, and you can see it in detail. Okay, you also see these are the tools that are either based on GraphQL, or they use GraphQL as they're a framework that uses GraphQL, and this is obviously not an inclusive list. But for example, Gritsum, a lot of you might be familiar with Gritsum. it's a CMS that's basic that's making that's quite popular these days. Then there is Hasura, which I'm also trying these days, and which I'm also working with. And it's an excellent option for backend. Actually, you can actually come up with a working backend in 5 minutes if you're working with Hasura. So these are all the qualities of GraphQL, and without further ado, let's jump into the code side of things, and let's just build a quick API using GraphQL, and then see as to how things go, and see how easy it is to start with GraphQL, especially with Laravel. So I'll just start blank. I hope you guys can see my screen. I think it's very small. Let me bump that up a bit. Okay. I hope that is visible. Can anyone let me know in the comments if they can see the screen properly? Okay. So we'll start with a new Laravel project, and we'll use the Laravel new command. I have the Laravel installed in
Harvey,
prod.
we cannot see your screen. It is blacked out actually.
Okay, can you not see the top, which is
Oh yeah, yeah, I can now. What was quite
okay? Okay, so
good.
it's actually a large screen, and sometimes
It was
I
actually hiding beneath my live icon. So please carry
oh,
on.
okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so what we'll do is we will call it GraphQL backend, and so this is installing Laravel. It'll just take a minute. Okay, so we're starting with scratch, from scratch. Sorry. Okay, and we'll do GraphQL BE1. Go into the folder and we'll open it in its code. Maybe that's a little better. Maybe their terminal is more visible, and it's going to be a bit above the fold as well. Okay, here we are. And okay, so what we're going to do is the first step that we're going to do is we're going to install Laravel Sail so that we can get quickly up and running. I know we can do PHP Artisan Serve as well, but I personally like Laravel Sail. So sorry, let me just set it straight in Google. Okay, and okay, so we're going to compose a require Laravel Sail. Laravel Sail is basically, for those of you who are not familiar with Laravel Sail, I think most of you would be, but Laravel Sail is basically a first-party Laravel package which helps you get up and running in a Docker container on your local machine really fast, and it's quite handy in quite useful in many cases. So what we're doing is we're just selecting MySQL, but you can install any of these other ones as well. For now, we're just going to go with MySQL. Okay, and all right. What we're going to do is we are going to we're going to run this command sail up -d. It's basically vendor bin sail up d, and you'll see that container by this name GraphQL BE1 is live on my local machine. So if I go to localhost now, and you'll see that a fresh Laravel installation is up and running. And okay, the only next thing we'll do is we'll check the database connectivity. So okay, so the database is connected, and we can actually okay, the database is connected, and we can actually migrate everything over. What we're going to do now is we're going to make some further changes. But before we do that, I think even before starting with GraphQL, let's start with what we're going to do is we're going to use an example of authors and books. So basically, one author has many books, and vice versa. So what we're going to do is right from the start, we are going to come up with a model, PHP artisan make model, and let's do the author first. Okay, sorry. The model already exists. Just 1 second. Okay, we can. Okay, and we'll also do author factory. Okay. While you can do it this way as well, there's a quicker way of getting things done. So, for example, if we delete these files, okay, and even the factory. Okay, there's a quicker way of doing things, and that is PHP artisan make model author, and then do an MF flag. So basically, that's going to get us a migration and also a factory in the same command. And in the same way, we are going to do make model book, and we're also going to do a migration and factory for the same. Okay, so our first stop is going to be the our first stop is going to be the books table, and we're going to quickly add some fields. So let's say title. Okay, and let me see what else we could have. Maybe description. Okay, and price. Number of pages, maybe. Okay, and okay, and we can add, an author ID, which will be a foreign ID. Okay, thank you, Copilot. All right, and what's going to happen is we're going to come now to the authors, and we're going to give it a few simple fields as well. So name, and then maybe email. Okay, so this is basically the columns of the database that we are populating right now. Okay, and we want, okay, maybe we can add country as well. Okay. Now in author ID, what we can probably do is, yeah, we can, in books, we might want to make a couple of changes. So maybe a description might be a bit of a longer text. So we can do that, and we can also maybe say type. Okay. Okay. So let's just quickly migrate these over. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about this. Integer. Integer. There you go. Okay, I used it somewhere else as well. When you're working with multiple stuff, you sometimes have this issue. Integer. Okay, that's everything is migrated over, and now what we need to do is we need to go to the factory quickly and make these make some dummy data for ourselves. So this is basically the book factory, and we're going to open it on the side, and we're going to use Faker, which is built into Laravel, and okay, so title, maybe a sentence with three. Okay, Azan is there, so I'll quietly do some stuff for a minute. So a lot of work these days is done by GitHub Copilot. That doesn't mean that the developer doesn't know how to do it, but and not everything is always correct. But that's another debate for another day. So let's just come up with a few types. Let's say fiction, non-fiction, just two or three, yeah. And then after this, I think we have covered all. Okay, so what this is going to do is this is going to take one ID, one random ID, and fill it in the book table. Now for authors.
Sardar bhai, the audience is requesting to please increase your font because it's not readable. Probably some of the guys are joined from phones. So can you increase its font?
Okay, increase the font. Okay, is it any better now?
It is better, but keep it increased as you move along, please. Thank you.
Okay, okay, sure. Okay,
Yeah, increase it a bit more, a few points more. Yeah, yeah. All right, you can resize the rest of the sections. Yeah, just like that. Thanks, man.
no problem. Okay, so what's going to happen is we are going to open this on the side again, and we are going to repeat the same stuff with. Let me clear these windows. Okay. Okay, so again, we're going to do name, okay, and then we're going to do email, and this is the Faker API is one of the most amazing things. The package itself is in doldrums these days, but I don't know. This is like one of the easiest APIs out there, and you can literally guess without even looking at the documentation as to what it would be. Um, okay, and same goes for country. So what factories are meant for is they quickly generate some some data for you, which you can use in your project, and which actually gives you, instead of you going to the database and manually doing everything, that gives you some. Okay, and before we go any further, there's one more stop that we need to make, and that is the database seeder. So what we're going to do is we're going to generate 10 users. A user seeder is already there in the user factory, is already part of the fresh Laravel installation. So we're going to make some authors, and I think let's save it in a variable for a bit of extra stuff. So for each authors as author, okay. It's not always correct, is it? Okay. What we're going to do is we are going to for each author as author, we're going to do what else? Book. We're going to generate some. Let's say 4 books. Maybe 3 should suffice for author. So for every single author, we are going to generate 3 books. Okay, and before we go any further, there's one last thing that we need to do, and that is, I hope you guessed it, it's setting up the relationships, because attaching books to authors is also one thing that we have to do. So we'll first go to the book model, and we'll say. And we'll say function author. So again, return this belongs to an author. So basically, it's highly readable. So basically, a book belongs to an author. Okay, this is how you read it. Book belongs to an author. All right, and now conversely, we'll go to the book. Sorry, to author. Sorry about this. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll put a relationship up here as well. The converse of that is going to be an author has many books. So return this has many. So again, it's very readable. An author has many books. So sometimes people have difficulty figuring out which specific relationship they have to use, and this is how you can make it more readable for yourself. So we'll do it once more. Migrate fetch. When you're using Laravel Sail, you always have to instead of PHP, you have to use Sail before the artisan commands. So we're going to use a seed flag, and hopefully, if everything is done correctly, the database has been seeded. And if you go to the database now and refresh it, I'm connecting to my database using SQL Ace. Okay, and if you go to the authors table, you'll see 10 authors. If you go to the books table, you'll see about 30 books. And if you and the author ID for an ID is also working. And as you can see, for every single author, there are 3 books on the database now. So once we do that, the next thing that we need to do is now comes the GraphQL part. So instead of going into the details of how we are going to update, how we are going to come up with the REST endpoints, we are very simply going to straight away go to GraphQL. And what we're going to do here is we are going to go to a package called Lighthouse PHP. Okay, and believe me, this is the only package that is going to be needed for interaction with our GraphQL database. So what we're going to do is we are just going to compose a require it. Okay, and okay, this is installed. And what we need to do next is we need to publish the schema file. Okay, and that's pretty much it. The only other thing that we need to do is we need to install the GraphQL Playground. Okay, so GraphQL Playground is installed, and let's see, GraphQL Playground. And there we are. So this is basically the postman of GraphQL. This is basically the GraphQL Playground, where you can work with with GraphQL. And now, since you have some data in the database already, all you need to do is query that database according to what you would like, according to the data that you would like to fetch. Before we do that, though, of course, we need to specify the schema for all these models. Okay. All right. So the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to specify a type. Two types actually, because we're using the author and the book except for the user, and there are some that come right out of the box. For example, users. So we can do a quick query here, and we can actually do now. There are two things. First of all, I mean, I said documentation. You'll see right now. You see there are two, and this is for the user side of things. As you can see, for every single field, it's giving its type, and it's also showing everything in detail as to exactly what it is expecting. And this is like it's auto documentation. So what's going to happen now is, okay, first of all, we're going to do users, and as you can see, this is autocomplete as well. This is not going to leave you alone to figure out what you need to write. And why we're doing data here is because we have a paginator here on users, just like we're going to have on the others as well. And if you have a paginator, then the pagination info is on top, and then the data itself comes down below. So what we're going to do is, for example, if we open the users table, if you open the users table, there's a name and email and password. So of course, password is not going to be accessible, but maybe we can use. For example, what if we want names of all the users in the database? It's just going to give us the names of the database, names of the users. And let's say if we just want the name and the email. Uh, email verify that. So the moment you start writing it, it starts giving you different options. If you have more, number of users, you can do a paginator info, and you can say current page, total, and I believe per page. Yeah, so this is going to give you the paginator info as well. So this is going to tell you this is page number 1 with total of 10 results, and per page it is showing 10. So right now, since we only have users, this is only going to work for users. So we are going to add the book and the author type. And what's going to happen is, so let's start with book. So, okay, so the first thing on any model is of course going to be the ID. So this is how you specify it. So on book, it's going to be, again, I tend to open it on the side so that I don't miss anything. So ID, and then there is maybe we can get rid of this. Okay. Then there is title, which is string. If it's going to be a required field, then you end it with an exclamation mark. Then there is type. So string. So for example, for any reason, if you want to make this nullable, I'm just saying, you can do this here. You can just leave it like that. So it's going to be whenever present, it's going to expect a string. Then there is price. Okay, and I think we'll go with integer instead of float for now. Then there is pages, and it's integer. And okay, and I think we missed description. And that's also going to be string. String is basically a regular way of saying, a normal way of saying free-form text. So any free-form text is going to be string. Integers are going to be integers. And then if you want to reference, for example, an author, you want to of course show an author here, right? So you might want an author, author type, and that's going to be a specific type. All right, that's going to be a specific type which you're going to specify below this. So this is going to show the relationship, and all of this is extensively there in the Lighthouse documentation. So you can visit the documentation and you can see it in complete detail, starting from the basics and eloquent and everything. So this is as elegant as Laravel can get. You don't really have to do write things in any new way. So there is also created at, which is datetime, and updated at, which is also datetime. So also on top here, you need to specify user. Sorry, it was books. Okay, and okay, it's going to be books, and it's going to let me. Okay, then it is supposed to return. It's going to be like this. It's supposed to return. Okay, this is basically this is supposed to return a book array, and this is required. And again, you paginate the results by 10 on every single page. That's one way that you can do the books. And then if you go for a single book, then it's going to be, of course, it's supposed to be ID. So every book is going to be is going to be searchable by an ID. And this colon and this book after that, this means that it's always going to return a book. A book type. And when you are working with finding using IDs, you use this simple find directive. So I think that's pretty much it for the book side of things. So what we're going to do is we're going to go again and say query, and we're going to start with books. Okay, if you don't see it, just refresh it. Okay. Okay, type is going to be of type book, and books. Let's save this. Okay, I think we'll also need to specify the author because we have mentioned author and it's not there, so that might be causing an issue. In ID. name, email, phone, address, country. All of these are going to be pretty much free form text. Okay, and created that and updated that, we can copy from here. Okay, and let's repeat the same for authors. Okay, so again, it's expecting an author as return, and we need to paginate it by on every single page for 10. It does just return 10 entries at a time. Okay, type user, type. Okay, I think there is one missing piece that we have, and we have to do is within type query. Okay, that is done. So okay, author, and author is going to be, all right, since we are, okay, authors, and since we are working with a paginator again, it's going to be name. So what if we want the names of just the name of the authors? It's going to give us all the names, and then if we want their phone, their email, and their address and country. So this is how we do it. And now, since we have the relationship set up, what we can also do is we can, over here in the authors, we can actually show books as well. So this is going to return a book, and as we have a has many relationships set up, we can actually return the books written by this author here as well. So we can do books, and if we want just the titles, we can do that. So what's going to happen is this person somehow from Pakistan with a very strange name, although these are because these are all randomly generated data. So what's going to happen is this person from Pakistan has written these 3 books, and if you look in the database, it's going to be same 3 books that this person has written. The converse is also true. Somehow books were they took a little time. So books, and if you want to query books, you can do it with, sorry, okay, see, it's very difficult to make a mistake. Data, okay, if you now, I've made a mistake again, and it's giving me in red. If I'm using the wrong parentheses, it's giving me that back in red. So same goes for the books. What we're going to do is we are going to look for all the book titles. Okay, there we go. And if we just want at any one page, if we just want the books and their author names, this is how we do it. Okay, so we just want the books and the author names, and that's how it is done. Now, one way is one kind of query is basically when you're doing these get requests. This is kind of the get requests. So one way is the queries, and the other way of doing things is mutations. So basically, mutations will be covering the rest of the CRUD operations. Mutation, and let's say if we have create book, and it'll ask us what is it expecting, and we can simply copy it from here. Of course, we don't need the ID. ID is going to be done automatically. And same goes for created ad, updated ad. These timestamps, these are also going to be generated automatically. And so what if we want to create a book? This is what we're going to do. We're going to create a book. We're going to give it these parameters and these fields. We're going to send these through, and that's going to give us a book in return. But we have to tell it that you have to give us this book in return, and you have to create this. So this is one of the ways of and one of the simplest ways really to create or add a book. Now, for author, we will not be, of course, adding the whole thingy here. So what we're going to do is we are going to do author ID, and that's going to be author ID. That's going to be an integer. Okay, that's going to be an integer, and if we always want to require it, we do an exclamation mark in the end, just like before. So now we have another weapon in our arsenal, and that is create. Okay. Okay. So we say mutation, and we say create book, and we follow the same pattern, just like the schema that we defined. We follow the same pattern, and as you can see, it's already suggesting things. All right, sorry. Okay, so what we do is we say title, the next big. I'm terrible at these things. Title, the next big thing. Okay, and let's say what else do we have in the book? We have description. Description. Okay, Lorem ipsum submit. Okay, yeah, that's I remember that bit. Type. Okay, and you might as well say history. You might be better off using some enums or something of some fixed kind of data, because this is going to, or maybe another model, but this is just for the purpose of this demo that we're just using this. Then price. Okay, price, we say $145 maybe, and then pages, there are 167 pages in this, just random number, and then author ID. So now we want to attach this book that we are creating now to author ID 2. So we want the author 2 to have these this book to be written by author 2. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are, maybe you can in the front end you can think of this as a drop down from which you're selecting the author, and then you're sending the ID in the request. So now what should it return? Okay, once it is created, it should give us it should tell us that it's created, and it should actually return us the title and description. Maybe we can only do with the title. Okay, just create this book and just return the title to us. So as you can see, all of this is completely customizable. It's completely customizable. If you just want the title and price, you can just send a request. Now you want to actually create this book, right? You want to add this book, so you just send this, and the next big. Okay, did I say things? Not good. Okay, but if you go to books, and if you refresh this, you'll see this entry in the database, and this is indeed attached to author number 2. So this is the way that you create books. Rahil bhai, I know time is of essence, and I think this is probably have to be 2 sessions, because complete front end CRUD is left. So we'll just cover the back end CRUD, and then hopefully we can do another session on this. Okay, so
Sure, you want to keep going more?
yeah, I'll just finish the CRUD for this, and then I think.
All right, please.
Okay, just maybe another
You,
10-15 minutes. Yeah. Okay.
sure. carry
Okay,
on.
thank you, thank you. Okay, so in the same fashion, we go with okay with when you're updating a book, for example, you'll need to obviously need you'll obviously need its ID. Okay, and again, it's not correct, so it's going to be of the type ID, and title is going to be a string, and description type, and okay, I'm just doing this because there's very little time, so I just want to get it over with. All right, so if you want to update the author ID as well, you can do the same and in the same fashion. And I think I don't need to actually demonstrate this as well, because this is going to be the same as create. This is just taking slightly different parameters. And yeah, this is um, okay, so if you want to delete a particular book, all you need to do is give it an ID, and it should return a book to you. Okay, and after deleting this, so that's it. In total, this is the code starting from, as you can see. I mean, I think it's probably 20 lines, looking very similar, and you are done with your CRUD operation. So if you want to go to, you can kind of comment it out or maybe delete it, and just try this mutation. And let's say you want to delete this book, and you say ID, and you wrote the cover wrong. Yeah, you said next big things. It was supposed to be next big thing. So for any reason, if you want to delete this, all you need to do is you need to give it the ID, and I believe the ID was 31. Okay, and so what it's going to do is this is going to delete it, and then it should return to you the, okay, right. It should return to you the ID, let's say. Let's see if this works. Okay, so the book is deleted, and it has returned you the ID of the deleted book. So if you come back here, the book is no longer there. So in short, I know we were supposed to cover Vue as well, but this is what I discussed with Rahil Bhai as well. That this is quite detailed, in fact, and I had to describe the complete background, why we want to do this, and the GraphQL adoption and everything. So it took a little longer than planned, and that's why I requested Rahil Bhai as well that it has to be probably. We'll have to do a follow-up session with the front end, doing all the CRUD operations from the front end as such. So Rahil bhai, over to you.
All right, so we have a couple of questions. Let me pull them up on screen one by one.
Okay.
You should be able to see it now. Can you?
Sorry, just 1 second.
I can read it out for you.
It should be.
Sir, how quickly the market will transition? Can you? Yeah. Sir, how quickly the market will transition from RESTful to GraphQL implementation so that we'll see more of skill in demand?
I
कितने हम
think
से RESTful से GraphQL की तरफ market shift हो सकती है? What do you think?
ओके, आई पर्सनली थिंक ग्राफक्यूएल की तरफ जो है ना मार्केट काफी ग्रेजुअली जो है वो काफी शिफ्ट हो रही है, एंड स्पेशली इन टर्म्स ऑफ माइक्रो सर्विसेज and places where just like I said, it depends on which market you're working in, but as I demonstrated with different companies, fairly large companies are using GraphQL, and the adoption, आप सिर्फ आप Upwork पे जाओ और आप just do a quick search for GraphQL, and you'll see a lot of jobs coming up, and there are fairly large projects. Also, like the ecosystem overall, just like I said, Hasura is also like gaining a lot of traction. उसमें भी काफी लोग काम कर रहे हैं, तो I think the job market is going to ultimately mature up in Pakistan as well, inshallah. Although it does take time, as you know.
So got another question from the same person. Also, what are some good resources you can recommend to learn about it?
Yes, what I'll do is in the comments for this video, although there are a lot of like YouTube videos and stuff as well, and GraphQL officially has some documentation as well. And for example, if you're working with Laravel, if you go through the Lighthouse documentation, it is excellent. It's like there's complete detail, just like I said, including I mean, as you can see, soft delete, nested query, all of that, every single thing is covered, including testing. So it's very detailed, and it would suffice for you. If you go the API resources way, you'll have to at least work in 5 files. I mean, I did this talk in DevCon as well last time, in which we were like we worked in at least 5 files before we could even see the REST endpoint, showing us something. But with this, in one single file, in about 12 to 15 lines of very similar looking code, you can do all of this. And also something that we couldn't cover, you can actually be very specific about what data, what kind of validation. I mean, you can very well validate the data as well in a very Laravel way. So you can add those directives in the same schema as well. Inshallah.
Okay, one question from my side, if you allow me to.
Yes, yes,
So,
Rahul, of course.
if you buy a new car, the first question everybody will going to ask you is, what is the fuel efficiency? So
Mhm.
whenever we do a training session from a code movement platform, similarly, every person asks the first question, what is the job demand, job market about this particular technology? Especially the young guys, they always ask this question: will this going to help me if I learn it? Will it going to help me find a new job, a good job? What do you see?
Railway. I think although maybe I mean there needs to be a separate session on this. But what's happening is you might have seen me posting a lot of jobs in code movement groups as well, and I mean we at Cloud Launch, for example, we're always hiring, always hiring like resources for latest tech. But even otherwise, in foreign companies, especially in Pakistan, the problem is, and I say this a lot, in Pakistan there is a lot of inertia. Like people, catch up very late. Certain software houses, I've heard they're doing really great. They're adopting latest tech very fast. But in most places it takes a lot of time. Getting up to speed with new stuff. But the purpose of this talk was that you should at least explore it, not stand on the shore and think, okay, the water is too deep, I can't go there. Just explore it, and this can very well, as I said, it can live with the REST API as well. So just add it in a project or two, work with this, and you'll find that this is amazing. The job market probably is going to take some time catching up. But React, guys, I mean, it can be used in Gatsby, in React itself as well, and Vue. Like right now, I mean, in the next session, as you'll see, it's fairly easy in the same way as REST to and with all of these advantages to use on the front end. So sometimes it's your choice, sometimes it's the client's choice, sometimes it's the software house's choice. So it depends as to how much choice do you really have when you are going with this. But job market will obviously it will take some time to in foreign companies, although there are quite a few jobs for this. Okay.
Great, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for detailed answers for all of the questions. And I do not see any other
Most
question
likely.
from
Thank
the
you for your time.
audience.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for your time, man. And let's take out some time and do a second episode in coming weeks.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Thank you so much for
All
your
right.
time.
Okay. Allah
Everyone.
Hafiz.
Assalamu
Shukran.
alaikum. Allah Hafiz.